Extremely excited right now at Granite Ridge Builders. It's the new year. It's 2020.
Yep.
So we're studying all about the new top 20 trends that are going on right now.
And I know you younger guys like new things, but some of us older guys like the old things, like what was happening in the 1920s right here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. For example, did you know that the Northside High School, that big building down there on Clinton and State Street that we've been in all of for so many years, was built in the early 1920s?
And that was also the home of the Zollner Pistons. They played there at that round gymnasium till about 1957.
Yeah, Tony, talking about entertainment, that was even different back in the 20s. We had something called Robinson Park. It was a really amazing amusement park. Only way to get there, people make their way downtown and took a steel car or a trolley and drop them off at the park. Really cool place.
And downtown also had a great theater scene going on with the M. Boyd Theater, which is now the Embassy. Played such a huge part of our downtown community.
It's true.
And even hosted Bob Hope at one time.
Wow.
An International Harvester came to Fort Wayne in the 1920s. That was a big deal because it brought a lot of jobs. And I know for my family it was a big deal. My dad worked there 47 years.
Wow. Hey, did you guys know that in 1927, Charles Lindbergh in his famous plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, buzzed right over our courthouse in downtown?
Wow. And I think that was right after he did the transatlantic tour, didn't he?
Yeah, by himself, solo flight.
Just came to
Yep.
Fort Wayne. Amazing.
You know, I have a picture here of Franke Park when it was first started. So John Franke, the founder of Perfection Biscuit Company, donated the first 80 acres in 1921 to make Franke Park. And he was also a big part of the Trinity Church as well.
Yeah, in fact, he was a really big part of the churches, and we were known as the city of churches. We had a lot of them, but that was one, they were 4,000 members. But we got to get started. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
You're all done
Yeah.
your history? All right, let's come back here and let's start our show.
Was that here? It took me 14 years to get.
Welcome to Between the Studs. We are Granite Ridge Builders, custom builders serving northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and also parts of southern Michigan. We have been building custom homes for almost 2 decades, and we're really passionate about what we do. So join us today as we explore the processes, the trends, and also tips that characterize today's new home. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back. We are so excited about today's show, Top 20 Trends of 2020.
But still, before we do that, let's talk about the 1920s, which were also known as the Roaring Twenties. However, if we go back just a few years prior to that, things were kind of dark and much different. For example, there was World War I, which began in 1914. It ran through 1918, and a number of our men in this area were casualties of the war.
Well, while a lot of people wanted to celebrate the war being over, there was also the pandemic in 1918 of the Spanish flu. So what is amazing about that is there were 500 million people infected. That was a third of the Earth's population at that time. Can you imagine? A third of the Earth is infected by the flu, killing about 20 to 50 million people, and this is 1918.
Because we had a lot of people that lost their life in that same.
Absolutely.
And at that same time, a lot of Fort Wayne was also losing their jobs because Prohibition started. And we had the Scent Liver Brewery Company. We had a lot of different industries all focused in on that. And when 1920 came, it was all gone.
I think they started root beer because they couldn't be selling
That's
beer,
right.
just so you know, which I do like today. You know, one other thing that had changed in our environment in Fort Wayne, because of the war and the Germans, they actually changed a lot of names in Fort Wayne. We had a German newspaper. They took the name off. We also had a small bank called the German American Bank, went to Lincoln Bank, which became one of the largest banks in our area, and that's where we get the Lincoln Tower today. So a lot of things were changing during that time.
Yeah, Tony, the war impacted so many parts of our lives, and for the very first time in 1913, they got to introduce income taxes.
Ooh.
They were already trying to create money to fund the war, not knowing it was going to go on so long. So they did start in 1913 at a modest 7%. But
Like
as
7%.
Yeah, I can use 7%.
But as that war continued to drag on, they had to find a way to pay for it. So the income tax got all the way up to, you ready, 77% in 1918.
That's crazy.
Okay, I'm not going to complain about our taxes today with that. Wow.
There was some reprieve, some slow decline, and by the time we got to 1925, the income tax came back down to 25%. So everybody was thrilled by that.
No wonder we had the Roaring Twenties. Things were moving at that time. Wow.
And obviously they had more money in their pocket because of that. And downtown was really a happening place. They had lots of different theaters, there was groceries all over. There wasn't the big central grocery. There was a lot of smaller groceries scattered throughout downtown. There was shoe repairs, drug stores, a lot of different places where you could shop and spend time downtown.
Well, I got two good stories on that. My grandfather came here, and he lived during that period, and he was on the railroad. Well, he used to work at Patterson Fletcher's on the side, one of the best suits and buying places of clothing. My dad would work at one of those little grocery stores. Every corner had one over on Creighton and Oxford, near that area. And what he did, he was the first delivery guy. He had a bicycle. He would take all the meat that people ordered and take his bike and deliver. So that's where your first Amazon came from.
Well, we had a lot of growth in population in our area. Fort Wayne in 1920 was about 85,000 people, give or take. By the late 1920s, we were over 114,000 people.
That's booming.
It is.
And it was affecting industry as well. During that 10-year period, Indiana and Fort Wayne area especially outpaced the nation, almost tripling the output of industry and making a huge impact for the country.
Wow.
With the booming auto industry, we also had a guy by the name of Tokheim that made a huge invention that changed the world around us, and that is the gas pump. So again, if you think about the old-fashioned gas pump, he's the one that started that, and of course it's become what it does today, where we got them everywhere. Again, autos are a huge part of our society, and he started here in Fort Wayne, and again, it affected the whole world.
And in August of 1920, International Harvester broke ground on the plant here in Fort Wayne. It's still one of the largest construction projects in Fort Wayne history. Eventually, International Harvester would employ 10,000 people. Wow. They were known as the truck capital of the world at one time. They also, in the 20s, were considered the fourth largest corporation in the United States. So behind Standard Oil, U.S. Steel, and the American Tobacco Company.
Well, Lonnie and I always wanted to own one of those Scouts. That was our favorite thing to think about.
I still would drive one.
Well, most of us have been in a grocery store and seen Eckrich meats, right? Hot dogs, sausages. Well, he got started here. Peter Eckrich came from Germany, settled here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, opened up a little meat market stand, which eventually, fast forward a few years, 1925, he opened up Peter Eckrich and Sons, and it became one of the largest meat manufacturers in the United States.
And you cannot not talk about Fort Wayne and talk about wire. We became 90% of the world's wire came from little old Fort Wayne. We had Essex, we had Phelps Dodge, and Ray Magnet Wire. So that was a really big, rich part of our history, was that.
Well, I think it's interesting that the Wayne Paper Box Company had a long history in Fort Wayne. In 1923, they were building phase 2 of their complex, which is also now being renovated as the Riverfront Project. So that was becoming a big thing in 1923, and it's coming back around already, and we're going to be using it again.
Yeah, and 1920s was big. We've all heard Fort Wayne is called the city of churches. That's when that movement really started, and most of the churches were growing downtown. So Kayla, you mentioned in an earlier segment that the Trinity English Lutheran Church, mainly funded by Franke, got to over 4,000 members. There were a few others like the Plymouth Congregational Church. A lot of downtown growth for our churches.
You know, as Tony was saying, the wire was a very important industry in Fort Wayne, and so was electronics. In Fort Wayne, between a man named Farnsworth and Capehart, we became known as a great place for quality phonograph equipment and also the TV. Some would say the TV was invented right here in Fort Wayne.
There's also another thing that was brought to Fort Wayne, and you had the phonographs. Well, people wanted to know what the latest music was. They wanted to hear it, and so we had our first radio station in Fort Wayne, which was WGL. WGL stood for What God Loves.
Wow.
And then a few years later, it was bought out, and it was called Whoa Whoa. And that's what started with the 10,000 watts going all over the world, literally to Russia at times.
Wow.
And that all started back in 1925. Well, we've had a lot of fun talking about this, but we have a lot more to talk about. I need a drink of water, though, so we're going to go to a quick commercial and be right back.
Okay.
Now, guys, in the opening, I talked about Charles Lindbergh flying over our courthouse. Well, there's some other exciting things that kind of centered around airplanes in the 1920s in the Fort Wayne area. 1925 is when we got our first airport. It was later renamed to Smith Field. Most of us were familiar with that.
Yeah.
And that was named after a local pilot, kind of a local legend, so to speak. His name was Arthur Smith. His nickname was Bird Boy, and he was kind of known as a daredevil, and he was the originator of skywriting.
No way.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, in 1920, he died in a plane crash on an airmail run kind of right by the Ohio line.
Let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about what was life like in the 1920s. What was your personal life like? I know one thing, they didn't have air conditioning. What else?
Well, I can't imagine living without my refrigerator, and they did not have refrigerators. They had ice boxes, and so somebody would come on a horse and carriage and deliver a big chunk of ice, and that's how they got their food chilled, and I can't imagine it.
Wow. And then about the same time, cars began to evolve. There was the Model T Ford. There was a horseless carriage, which is a little simpler and a little less expensive vehicle. And then there was also the Auburns, which were made in Auburn, Indiana.
Nice cars.
And with those cars, we used to have a lot of rutted, basically trails going everywhere where people got from point A to point B with the horse and the carriage. Well, now we got cars.
Yeah.
So now we need roads. They did 3,000 miles of roads in this area between 1920 and 1926.
Wow.
Interesting. Let's do this for our audience. Let's talk a little bit about the cost of living. I do know one thing. Cars back then, $525. You could buy a car. Pretty amazing.
Now, that's how much it cost for a car. The average income back then was about $2,100. And get this, it only cost $15 a month for rent.
Wow. Well, gasoline back then in 1920 was about 30 cents a gallon. Now by 1924 it dropped to about 11 cents. Postage stamps, those were 2 cents. But think of all the mail you had then. We don't mail much anymore.
Texting now.
Right. And then a ticket to the movie theater was about 15 cents.
Goodness. Well, in that time, we had about 3 schools. We had North Side, South Side, and Central. And strangely enough, the amount of tuition for one of the big schools, a prestigious school like Harvard, $250 a year.
That's not even close now.
Dollars.
In the 20s, entertainment was scarce. There wasn't a lot that people could do. They could go to the movies, they could listen to the radio, they could go to church, so they ended up spending a lot of time at home. And because of that, they were doing different things with their homes, with some trends back then, including the siding on the houses. They didn't have a lot of choices though, so the siding was almost always white. They also heated their homes with coal. So the outside of the house ended up turning black, and that's when the term whitewashing would come around, because they would whitewash their house every spring to get rid of that black dinginess that was on the siding.
And speaking of homes, typically the home would have maybe 2 or 3 bedrooms with just 1 bath, if you were lucky. And then the kitchen, you could hardly turn around in it. You'd be lucky to have a stove and a little refrigerator or ice box, but that was it. And that's what they lived with and they were content with.
Well, the cost of those houses were incredible too. So in 1920, the average cost of a house was about $6,300. The whole house, $6,300. And then 4 years later, it did jump up to about $7,700. That was a pretty big price increase there. But then in 1939, it dipped down to $3,900 was the average price of a home, probably because of the Depression. But the style of those houses were usually a 4-square bungalow, maybe ranch style. And where did they get all the houses from?
Sears
catalog. Yep, absolutely, Sears catalog. So
Well, here's a few houses that the Sears catalogs came out with.
Yeah.
You guys watch that. And then stay tuned. We're now going to talk about all the trends of 2020 that we're seeing today.
We've had an exciting time talking about 1920 and our past and Fort Wayne's past, but now we need to visit how everything old is new again, and let's talk about the top 20 trends of 2020.
One of the things I'm so excited about with the year 2020 is that we are going to be able to remember everything so precisely, so specifically, and so down to the finest detail. We're going to be able to remember it all.
How is that?
Well, because hindsight is 2020.
Oh, no.
Kayla, you got anything you can add to that?
Okay, I'm going to start first because I really love this trend, and we think that the #1 trend in 2020 has got to be the modern architecture and modern style. So we've been talking about this for a while, and it's really going to hit home this year. And there's so many different types of modern out there. There's the modern craftsman, there's the modern contemporary, modern industrial, all sorts of different types of modern style. And it has to do with the architecture itself, but a lot of the features that goes into these houses. So they're going to be simpler. We're going to have a lot of contrasting black-white color schemes. We have a lot of hardscaping, a lot of wood flooring throughout. So a lot of trends that we've seen up and coming the next years, but we're going to just take it one step further and have a really clean, polished, sort of a really fun architectural style that I love designing with.
Okay, well, one thing I can tell you, we can see that modern is in. Between the Studs has now done 4 episodes just on that modern movement.
Oh,
In fact,
yeah.
we described 8 different types of modern. A lot of people don't even know the terminology yet, so we encourage you, if you would like to know a little bit more modern, go back to that.
Exactly, I love that.
And speaking of modern trends and modern architectural styles, we're setting in one today, the modern farmhouse out here at Lot 2, Lakes of Leo. Incredible house. You got to come out and see the front porch, for example, the outside veranda that provides outside living, the kitchen. Incredible things being done in the kitchen, detail that kind of emphasizes that modern farmhouse style. And also the ceiling in the great room. Incredible. You got to come out and experience the industrial farmhouse.
Well, and Lonnie, you said this is Lot 2, and that's #2 on the trend list for us, right? So
That's right.
There you go.
There you go.
Part of you're talking about this house, we also have it incorporated, which is trend #3, which is larger islands and gathering spaces right in the kitchen. We're seeing more islands that have table and chairs built right into the island. It's almost going back to those 20s again with the big one-room houses, the one-room areas that everyone gathers in, and that's what's really coming back.
Well, kitchens are heart of the house.
Yes.
However, I'm going to say now the kitchen is the social gathering area
Yes.
of
Very
any
true.
home,
Very
especially in the modern, but also
Yeah.
in almost every kitchen we're designing, and we've designed a lot of them lately.
Trend #4 is going to be something that's continued to happen for the last few years, and that's the outdoor living trend. This one is a great house, again, to display that with things like a veranda off the back, that porch area with a fan, the fire pits outside, doing an outdoor kitchen. These kind of features have continued to be a huge trend, and they've really been accented in the Granite Ridge homes.
Well, I think a lot of homes are now smaller. However, we're putting that veranda in, it appears bigger.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that outside indoors, I would say that is probably one of the biggest trends that we've been seeing for the last 4 years or 5 years, but it's just gotten even nicer, more complicated from the standpoint of what you're putting out there.
Well, those little outdoor heaters are what I think are making this outdoor living so much more nice as well, because you can put that outside. Spring and fall, you can spend more time out there than we ever could before.
And those retractable screens are awesome too for those areas.
They are. That's a great idea. Well, trend #5 is the bathroom. I know we all love to stay in a luxurious hotel.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're doing with our bathrooms. Tile showers have been a big hit the past few years, but they're changing now. We're doing linear drains. We're doing a lot more glass. So we were doing 3 walls of tile. Now we're doing 2 or 3 walls of glass, which is gorgeous with a beautiful door. Beautiful vanities. We're doing a lot of quartz with the undermount sinks. We're doing tile not only in the shower and on the floor, but we're doing it on the walls as an accent. And then probably my favorite trend is the toilet. We have a wall-mounted toilet. And I don't know, I know Kayla has 2 boys. I have 2 boys. Imagine a wall-mounted toilet so you can clean right underneath it.
That'd be perfect.
So how big are the baths now? Are they bigger because of this, or?
Some of the bathrooms are bigger, some are not. They're just more luxurious, you know, heated floors, a lot more detail when it comes to the bathroom.
Elizabeth, are you seeing more bathtubs coming back in too?
We're seeing a few of them. Most people are still focusing on the shower, but there are people who like the freestanding tub.
So the garden tub's out, but the freestanding tub is probably in.
It is.
Well, and people like the 2 different sinks, but I've had 2 clients coming in now that are seeing that trend of separating them on separate sides of the
sure,
room. even.
Exactly.
And the modern movement, I've seen them raise it. In other words, there's nothing underneath it, so that's another interesting
just like
theory.
the toilet.
Cleaning-wise, it's easier, so a lot of fun things, a lot of interesting new trends.
All right, guys, trend #6 is laundry rooms. And I think we're going to have to start coming up with a different name because it's really a multifunctional room. And I mean, back in the 1920s, there was no laundry room in these floor plans. Then they became kind of more closets, just big enough for the washer and dryer. Then they became like 6 by 5, big enough to maybe stand in front of those washers. Now they're 9 by 7, 10 by 10. They're mud rooms. There's built-in lockers to keep your families organized. There's extra countertop spaces. There's cabinets in there. There's a closet in these laundry rooms now. They're just getting so big, and that's almost like second to the kitchen. People want to talk about the laundry room next to make sure that it fits their family's needs.
And Luke, going back to Lonnie's number 2 trend, okay, you can come out to this house and you can see a dog area and a cat area or pet station inside one of those laundry areas.
Kayla, are you seeing them decorating the laundry areas different too?
Oh, of course. There's going to be a lot more focus on the laundry when it comes to what cabinets they're doing, paint accent, wall colors. You have a lot more fun, and especially have fun with the flooring and all those little accent things because it is such a great space and it's so personal to you. You can do whatever you want.
And you spend so much time there that we're doing windows in there now too. You might as well bring some daylight in. You spend way more time there than you'd like to admit anyway. So
a lot of cabinets in there.
Cabinets for a folding
lockers.
station, lots of storage. You could have a packing station. Just a great hub for the family.
Going along with that, number 7 trend. It's what we've been talking about for 10 years now. Bigger and bigger and bigger, now biggest pantries. Closets. They just keep getting bigger. Some of our pantries lately have been as big as a master bedroom. Closets. And when we talked about the 1920s, did you know that in bedrooms there was no closets? They were just cabinets that were movable. Today, everybody has to have walk-in closets, more shelving, and we do inspired closets. And I think that has been a big key because they're adjustable. But closets, pantries, absolutely huge.
One thing I've seen in more pantries is them making them bigger so they can put appliances in there as well.
Yes.
I was going to say it's the features that
It's
really
wonderful.
are what's standing these pantries apart. There's cabinets in there, not just shelves. There's a lot of electrical for a lot of different features like that. You have as many special features in a pantry as you do a kitchen when it comes to pullouts and baskets and all sorts of stuff. So that's definitely
that goes
important.
back to that one word, butler pantry.
Yep,
A lot of times they would do the prep stations and everything else in that butler pantry. I think we're seeing that as one of our big trends too.
I have a client right now who has a dirty kitchen because they want a separate space.
That's my house.
Yes, exactly. They have a whole separate kitchen just for food prep areas, so that's really exciting.
And it's important because our floor plans are open. That's why people want a large pantry because they don't want things out on their kitchen counter that you can see from the foyer or the great room. They can hide that in the pantry.
Well, I have number 8, and I think this is a really great trend, and that's going to be lower levels or basements. Now, each lower level and basement seems to be very specific to each family, so it's hard to say what all goes into a basement because every family is a little bit different. There's so many different features, anywhere from extra kitchens, extra bedrooms for that second generation families or the kids coming back from college. There's so many different things you could do with entertainment down there. You have the theater rooms, the pool tables, but you have some fun things that you could do. We've had, recording studios before. We've had all sorts of different specialty areas, and this basement lower level is a really great trend for the unknown and the growing families to be able to expand their space.
Number 9 focuses on pets, pet stations, or pet showers. You might place them in the utility room, you might put them in the garage, or you might even build a special room for your pets to take care of their food needs and their grooming.
Under stairways, I've seen some really neat areas for the pet stations.
Back to your pantries, they've had quite a few in there with things. Now, the next trend, one of my favorite trends, is because it allows people to have their own imagination, and that's the specialty rooms. What is the room that you want to have more than anyone else? So if you're looking at some of our floor plans, you'll see that we have flex rooms. That's because we don't know what to call it, because it can be anything from what you want.
Me.
My big thing, I would love to have a cigar room.
And of course, it could be used as an office.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to have a craft room or even bunk room for kids' beds. I love those.
I'm still home gym. I think that is a perfect specialty room.
And for kids, what about a hockey room or a room for a little batting cage?
I know, I would love to have a personalized video game room.
Oh,
Or even a children's retreat.
Trend number 11, of course, is something I love a lot. It's the smart technology. It's something that we at Granite Ridge have really adapted to with making things like your light, your thermostats, all kinds of things that can be adapted to a smart home hub.
A lot of Ring doorbells right now.
Your appliances being attached to that,
And trend number 12 is the staircase, a U-shaped staircase. This adds a lot of character to the home, and we're doing a lot more of these. What I really like is the landing. So you go up a few steps, turn, and then go up a few more.
Yeah, and right along with that, trend number 13 is specialty items with that staircase. So you mentioned that landing. People are taking advantage of that. Here in this house, for example, we almost have like a library at that point. We have a bunk of shelves, but we're seeing a lot more of glass railing. We have wire railing, kind of gives it more of the sleek look. And that underside of the stairs, people always struggle with what to do with that space because they kind of feel like it's a wasted space. We've done wine grottos there. I've seen reading nooks there. So people are getting really creative on how to make that staircase stand out and taking advantage of those spaces.
And trend number 14, we're going back to concentrating on our front exterior elevations. Obviously, we've seen a lot more stone, stacked stones, bricks still popular, and with modern exteriors, we're starting to get all types of different elevations.
I really love the features of the stain coming back on the outside, whether it's the stained siding, stained accent pieces, posts. I love that all on the outside of the house.
Another thing, our windows, they're coming in different shapes and sizes, and particularly right now, the double hung window, or what we might call the tilt wash window in the color of black, is very popular.
The big thing I'm seeing with the exteriors is it's the small details that people have got away from for a while that are coming back to, with the gable struts and the rafter tails, and really accenting those, making them look fantastic.
That arts and craft is still in there.
Yeah, definitely.
And don't forget the roofs either. We're either seeing a nice steep slope or people want that more shallow slope. But we're also seeing some accents on those as well. So people are intermixing metal roofs with our asphalt shingles.
And then along with that is the overhang. We're seeing bigger overhangs. So going from what we normally see a 12-inch, going 18 inches or 24 inches.
And that makes a really big difference.
It does.
And right along with that, rounding out the top 20 is the picture windows and large specialty windows that we're seeing in these homes. I mean, we're sitting here on this couch right now and we're looking at one large picture window with a couple casements on the side with transoms up top. Like Tony just said, glass, 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 and we're seeing hopper windows. I mean, people are getting really creative on figuring out ways to bring in that natural light, but also take advantage of some gorgeous views.
You know, this is awesome. I think we even have more trends than this. But guess what? Time has run out. We got to get this show closed, guys. Good job.
It never fails. I learn so much every time we tape.
I agree.
I'm really excited about 2020 and all these trends.
I am too. It's amazing to see 1920 to 2020, how much it's changed.
100 years.
Yeah, just doing all the research today, I had no idea how trendy Fort Wayne's been. We were really industry leaders in a lot of different ways.
We were the hub when it came to so many things. Entertainment, we had the M-Void. We were one of the originators of the television set, and radio, with WoWo being its 50,000 watts going all over. We also had manufacturing. We had everything with Magnavox and Harvester, and a lot of people don't realize what we did with just gasoline pumps for the whole world.
You're right. One thing for sure, things are ever changing, which really explains why we're blessed with so many neat trends today.
Yeah, we really are blessed, and I hope you found that we are blessed. And for what we have, all the trends that we get to enjoy, were because of our ancestors and the people that preceded us. Would you go ahead and close for us?
Absolutely. As always, guys, we want to thank you for spending part of your day with us. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please just pick up the phone, give us a call, visit the website below. Even better yet, come in at any one of our front doors and we can talk about how to incorporate the new trends of 2020 into your brand new custom home.
Okay, good job. I think that worked.
I'm here. My goodness.
We should go down to the
History is always a great one.